They said the wind in the fjord could speak. On nights when the moon bled silver over the snow, those who listened swore they could hear voices riding the gale, the cries of warriors lost to time, their laughter and sorrow frozen in the ice. Sigrun had heard them since she was a child. At first she thought it was the sea howling or the gulls mocking the shore, but as she grew she realized the truth. The voices were calling her name. Sigrun. Even as a girl she was restless, too fierce for the loom, too wild for the soft talk of maidens. While other girls wove dreams of marriage and hearths, she trained with her brothers in secret, wrapping her hands in worn leather, gripping the wooden sword until her palms blistered. Her father, old Harik of Bjornfjord, was a raider-turned-farmer, one of those who had seen too much killing to still find glory in it. But he saw the fire in his daughter's eyes and did not quench it. He taught her to fight, though he warned her, "Steel will answer your courage, Sigrun. It does not care that you are a woman." But Sigrun was born for more than fields and quiet winters. There was something in her blood, an echo of those long-dead shieldmaidens who once rode beside kings. When the longship returned from the west, dragging the smoke of conquest behind it, Sigrun stood on the shore and watched the men unload their treasures, silver chalices, Frankish blades, and silk that glimmered like starlight. Yet her gaze didn't linger on the loot. It lingered on the faces. Half the crew had not returned. That night, as the mead flowed and songs of the raid rose high, Sigrun slipped away from the firelight and went to the cliff overlooking the sea. The moon's reflection broke over the waves like shattered glass. The voices came again, faint, almost tender. Shieldmaiden. She turned, heart hammering. The wind carried a shape. Not a man, but something older. The outline of antlers against the clouds, the smell of smoke and iron. Then the voice again, deeper, colder. "You will stand where men fall. You will bear the mark of the raven." When she blinked, the vision was gone, but the echo remained. Ravens circled the fjord the next morning. From that day on, Sigrun was never the same. She trained harder, fought harder, and when her father finally fell ill, she took his sword, Frostbane, and swore she would carry it to her death. Years passed. The village grew quiet, too small for her spirit. Rumors came of kings rising and falling across the north, of Harold Fairhair binding the clans beneath his crown. But in the west, beyond the icy sea, strange omens stirred, settlements gone silent, traders who vanished along the Greenland coast. Some said the gods themselves were withdrawing from Midgard. One winter, when the sun barely rose and the sky burned like dying embers, a messenger came to Bjornfjord. He spoke of a new war, not for gold, but for vengeance. A rival jarl named Ketil had raided their allied village and slaughtered every man, woman, and child. The survivors called for aid. Sigrun answered. She gathered 20 warriors, men and women alike, and they swore their oaths beneath the standing stones. The wind tore through their cloaks as if testing their courage. Before they departed, the village seeress, an old woman with eyes clouded by prophecy, touched Sigrun's forehead and whispered, "You will die before summer's thaw, but you will walk where the gods tread. Fear not the end, Shieldmaiden. Fear forgetting your name." The longship cut through the dark waters like a serpent. Ice clung to its prow. The oars groaned in rhythm. The sea hissed, alive and endless. The crew sang under their breath, not of victory but of remembrance. On the 5th night, a storm struck. The wind screamed like dying souls, and waves rose higher than mountains. Sigrun held the tiller with bleeding hands, shouting orders into the chaos. Lightning flashed, revealing shapes in the mist, figures walking on the water cloaked in fog, faces pale as bone. One of her men screamed that he saw Odin himself riding the storm. Sigrun said nothing, but in her heart she felt the pull of something vast, as if the All-Father-esque gaze had fallen upon her. By dawn the storm had broken and half their provisions were gone. They rode through a sea littered with driftwood and corpses. The ravens followed again, black wings against the gray. When they reached Ketil's lands, smoke rose from the valleys. His warriors were many, his longhouse defended by walls of timber and iron. But Sigrun did not turn back. At dusk, she gathered her warriors by the river bank. "We strike at dawn," she said. "If we fall as we lived, standing." A hush fell. Some murmured prayers to Freya, goddess of battle, others to Odin for courage. Sigrun alone looked north, toward the dark line of trees, and whispered, "If my fate is written, let it be worthy of song." That night she dreamt again of the antlered shadow. It stood before a great hall of gold, its doors blazing with light. She heard music, the clash of feasting warriors. Then a raven landed on her shoulder and whispered, "Your name will outlive your bones." When she woke, frost had crept over her hair. Dawn burned red on the horizon, and the smell of blood already hung in the air. She smiled. Then let it begin. The morning came blood-red and soundless. Even the ravens perched along the frost-bitten pines seemed to wait. Sigrun tightened the leather on her wrists, the last ritual before battle. Her warriors stood beside her, faces pale with the cold, their eyes shining with that strange, terrible light that comes before death or glory. The air was thick with the iron smell of snow and fear. Across the valley, the longhouse of Ketil the Cruel loomed like a sleeping beast, its roof a scar of smoke against the gray sky. The faint clatter of shields and the growl of horns echoed through the stillness. The enemy knew they were coming. Sigrun's heart pounded not with dread, but with purpose. The old seeress words whispered again in her memory. "You will die before summer, Sthaw." So be it, she thought. Let my death be worth the winter. The frost cracked beneath her boots as she stepped forward, lifting her father's sword, Frostbane. Its blade caught the pale light, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw faces swirling in its steel. The ghosts of every battle Herrick had ever fought. She whispered a vow to them, and the wind answered, carrying her words into the tree line. "Bjornfjord lives in us," she said, loud enough for her warriors to hear. "No one will sing Ketil's name when this day ends, but they will remember ours." Then she raised her shield and they charged. The valley erupted. The sound was like thunder splitting the world, shields cracking, steel clashing, war cries swallowed by the cold air. Sigrun moved like the storm she'd survived, every strike precise, every motion driven by the fierce rhythm of survival. She cut down a man with an axe, parried another's spear, and used her shield as a weapon, shoving him back into the snow. Around her, the warriors of Bjornfjord fought like wolves, but they were outnumbered 3-1. Ketil's men poured from the longhouse like hornets from a burning nest, their armor crude, their faces smeared with ash and fury. For a moment it seemed hopeless, but Sigrun didn't feel despair, only clarity. She saw everything, the way light shimmered off ice, the way a dying man's breath fogged the air, the way the ravens circled higher above them. She felt every heartbeat, every drop of blood, as if the world itself had slowed to watch. And then she saw him. Ketil. He stood on the longhouse steps, massive and scarred, his fur cloak dragging behind him. His sword was blackened, runes carved along its length, a weapon meant for killing not just bodies but legacies. He smiled when he saw her. "So the girl comes to die," he called. Sigrun spat blood into the snow. "No," she said, raising her blade. "I came to end your name." They met in the center of the field, two storms colliding. The first blow nearly broke her arm. Ketil was stronger, heavier, but Sigrun was faster, burning with something greater than rage. She dodged, countered, and struck again, each movement drawing sparks from steel and frost. He swung at her chest. She blocked. He kicked her down. She rolled with the impact, slicing across his thigh. He roared, blood spraying across the snow. "You fight like a man," he spat. Sigrun's eyes burned with fury. "I fight like myself." The words cut deeper than her blade. Ketil's smile vanished. He swung again, faster now, wild. One strike slipped through, slicing across her ribs. Pain seared her side, but she didn't falter. She lunged, driving Frostbane into his shoulder. The sound was raw, like the earth tearing open. They grappled in the snow, blood mixing with ice, breath turning to steam. Around them, the battle still raged, distant now, as if the world had narrowed to just this: two souls, one fate. Then the sky darkened. The wind shifted, carrying a sound, not the clash of steel, but something deeper. A voice. Sigrun. She froze. The world tilted. The battlefield faded into gray mist. The snow beneath her turned to ash. She looked up and saw them. The Valkyries. Riders of shadow and light, their spears blazing like frozen lightning, their hair whipping like banners of smoke. They hovered above the ground, faces hidden behind golden helms. Ravens flew between them, their cries echoing across eternity. The Allfather watches, one said. Her voice was both thunder and whisper. Your fate nears its edge, daughter of Bjornfjord. Sigrun's knees trembled. Not yet, she whispered. Not until he falls. The Valkyrie tilted her head almost in sorrow. Then let the last strike be worthy. The mist shattered. The battle roared back into being. Sigrun gasped. Ketil's sword was swinging toward her neck. Instinct took over. She ducked, twisted, and drove her blade upward through his chest. The sound that followed was not human. Ketil's body stiffened. His sword fell, clattering uselessly to the ground. He looked at her, not in rage, but disbelief, before collapsing. The field fell silent. Sigrun stood over him, chest heaving, blood soaking through her armor. The surviving warriors stared in awe, their shouts turning to chants of her name. The ravens cried above them, spiraling in black arcs. But Sigrun didn't raise her sword in triumph. She looked at her hands, trembling, slick with crimson, and saw the faint shimmer of light along her skin, like frost melting into gold. Then the pain hit her. The wound in her side was worse than she'd thought. Her vision swam. The world bent, flickering between snow and flame. She fell to her knees. Around her the battle cries faded, replaced by a deep hum, a sound like the earth remembering something ancient. The sky split with light. She looked up one last time and saw the Valkyries descending, their wings vast and terrible, the wind howling in reverence. One reached for her, hand outstretched. Come, Shieldmaiden, the feast awaits. Sigrun smiled through the blood on her lips. Then take me where my name will not fade. The world dissolved into light, and the battlefield was gone. When she awoke, she was standing before a great hall. Its gates were carved from ivory and flame, and from within came the sound of laughter, song, and the clash of friendly swords. A golden wolf lay sleeping at the door. The Valkyrie beside her spoke softly. You have walked far, Sigrun of Bjornfjord. Few mortals carry both courage and sorrow so deep. Enter, for you are home. Sigrun took a step forward and froze. At the threshold she saw them, her father, her brothers, the warriors she'd lost in battle, all smiling, all waiting, and beyond them, on a high throne of spears and starlight, the All-Father himself, Odin One-Eye, watching her with the gaze that could pierce creation. Welcome, daughter of Frost, he said. You have earned your seat in Valhalla. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of peace. She stepped forward, into eternity, and the doors of Valhalla thundered shut behind her, not in finality but in triumph. Far below, in the mortal world, the ravens took flight over a silent battlefield. One of them carried a single strand of golden hair, glinting in the sun, the last trace of Sigrun, the Shieldmaiden who defied death. The first thing Sigrun felt was warmth, not the burning heat of a forge or fire, but a steady, living warmth, as though she stood within the heartbeat of the world itself. She opened her eyes and found herself in a vast hall that seemed to stretch beyond time. The roof beams were made of great whale bones and branches of Yggdrasil itself. Shields lined the walls like golden scales, reflecting the glow of 1,000 torches. The air smelled of mead, smoke, and the faint sweetness of roasted boar. Voices echoed. Laughter, shouting, singing. Hundreds of warriors feasted around long tables, their faces bright with joy and their wounds gone as though they had never existed. Mead flowed endlessly from horns that refilled themselves, and every cup raised was followed by a thunderous skull that made the rafters tremble. Sigrun stood at the doorway, her heart caught between awe and disbelief. So this was Valhalla, the place sung of in every saga, whispered by dying men as they fell. "Come, sister," a deep voice called. She turned and froze. It was her father. Harik of Bjornfjord stood beside the fire pit, whole and strong, his laughter echoing as he lifted a horn high. The scars she remembered from childhood, the jagged line down his jaw, the missing fingers, were gone. His beard was full again, his eyes bright as a storm. He saw her hesitation and grinned. "Still staring like a lost calf, are you? Come, drink with me before the next battle begins." Sigrun's breath hitched. She took a step forward and suddenly her legs gave way. Harik caught her in a fierce embrace that smelled of smoke and pine. "I saw you fall," he whispered. "You fought like fire itself. The gods must have roared in pride when you struck Kettle down." Sigrun closed her eyes, fighting the wave of emotion. "I thought I'd never see you again." Harik's laughter softened. "No one stays lost forever, not if they die with a warrior's heart." He guided her toward the feast. Around them, other fallen warriors shouted greetings, calling her name. She saw men she'd fought beside years ago, even rivals she once swore she'd never forgive. All here, all alive in this strange eternity. At first it felt perfect. The food never ran out. The pain of wounds never lingered. Each day, warriors trained, fought mock battles, died at sunset, and rose again at dawn, ready to fight once more. Every night ended in laughter and song. And yet, something was wrong. Sigrun noticed it after the first few days, the sameness. The rhythm that never changed. No matter how fiercely they fought, no matter how many tales were told, every dawn reset the world. Every scar vanished. Every story repeated. One night, as she sat apart from the others, watching firelight flicker across the rafters, a figure sat beside her, cloaked in gray. "You do not drink," he said. His voice was quiet, old, and knowing. "I've drunk enough," she said. "There's no thirst here that cannot be filled." The man chuckled. "And yet your spirit still thirsts." She turned to him and for the first time saw his face. One eye, sharp, like a blade forged from storms. The other gone, hidden beneath shadow. A single raven feather hung from his cloak clasp. Her breath caught. She knelt instantly. "All Father." Odin smiled faintly. "Rise, Sigrun of Bjornfjord. The dead need not kneel. You have earned your place." She stood uneasy. "Then why do I still feel hollow?" He studied her for a long moment. The firelight glinted in his remaining eye. "Because you are not yet what you believe yourself to be." Sigrun frowned. "I fought with honor. I died with courage. You lived with anger." Odin interrupted gently. "You carried vengeance like a second heart. It burned bright enough to slay a man, but also to blind a soul." His words struck deeper than any blade. "I had no choice," she said quietly. "They took everything from me." "Perhaps," Odin said, "but here in this hall there is no revenge and only reflection. The feast and the battles are gifts, yes, but they are also mirrors. Tell me, child of frost, what do you see reflected?" She didn't answer. Odin's form flickered like mist. "When you can answer that, you will understand what it means to be truly chosen." Then he was gone, the space beside her empty except for a faint smell of smoke and storm. From that night, peace became impossible. Each battle, each song, each laugh around the fire felt like a lie. She began to notice cracks in the perfection, shadows that didn't belong, whispers between the rafters, faces that repeated too often, the same words spoken in the same order, the same jokes, the same cheers. It wasn't heaven, it was a loop. And Sigrun began to wonder, what if this wasn't paradise? What if it was testing? One night, while others slept or sang, She walked to the edge of the hall. Beyond the torches was darkness, endless, heavy, a place no one dared to go, but she stepped forward anyway. Her boots sank into ash. The warmth faded. Then, a whisper. "Do you regret it?" She turned and saw Kettle. His face was pale, eyes hollow. The wound she'd given him glowed faintly like molten metal. "This is impossible," she breathed. "You shouldn't be here." He smiled, a broken, twisted smile. "There is no Valhalla for men like me, only the places between. But here we can still be seen, if the gods wish it." Sigrun took a step back, hand on her sword. "Why would they wish it?" "To remind you," Ketil said. "You didn't just kill me. You damned me. You fed the fire they crave, blood-feeding fate." "I avenged my people," she hissed. He laughed, a sound like wind through bones. "And in doing so, you became like me." Sigrun's hand trembled. For a moment she saw it, the truth beneath the glory. Valhalla was not simply reward. It was purification, a forge. Every warrior burned until only their truest self remained. Ketil faded into mist. The darkness swallowed him, leaving only silence. Sigrun stood there for what felt like hours, her breath visible in the cold. Finally, she turned back toward the golden hall. Its doors blazed like a sun she could barely look at, and for the first time she wondered whether she still belonged there. The next dawn she did not rise for battle. Her comrades called her name. Her father looked for her, but Sigrun sat alone at the edge of the valley, watching spectral light ripple across the endless horizon. She whispered into the wind, "If there is more to this, show me." And the wind answered. A shape formed, not a Valkyrie this time, but something older. A woman of impossible age, her hair like moonlight, her eyes like the abyss. She carried a spindle and thread of silver light. "I am Urd," the woman said, "one of the Norns. I weave what is, what was, and what shall be." Sigrun bowed her head. "Then you know why I am lost?" Urd smiled faintly. "Every warrior who dies for glory must face what follows it. Death is not an end, child. It is a mirror." "What do I see in mine?" The Norn leaned closer. "You see that courage and vengeance share a face more and only one can enter eternity." Sigrun's throat tightened. "Then what must I do?" "Choose what remains when the fire burns away everything else," Urd said. "And if you cannot, you will fight forever." She touched Sigrun's forehead, and the world split apart. The mead hall shattered into shards of gold. The laughter of warriors turned into cries. Flames devoured the roof beams, and beneath them, she saw the truth. The souls of the fallen trapped in endless repetition, dying and rising, never free. Sigrun screamed, not in fear, but in defiance. "No more." Her sword flared with white fire, and she struck at the illusion. The world of Valhalla trembled. The feast halted. Odin's ravens shrieked in fury, and somewhere beyond the storm, the Allfather smiled. The snowstorm had quieted by dawn. For the first time in weeks, the wind stilled, and the world hung between silence and eternity. The mountains loomed like sleeping gods, their peaks carved in light. And there, at the center of it all, stood Sigrun. Her armor was split, her cloak in tatters. Her blood had frozen where it met the cold. The sword in her hand, once gleaming with life, was now streaked with ice and the memories of every man she had killed. She could not feel her fingers, or her legs. Only the burning weight in her chest, the wound she'd taken the night before, kept her aware that she was still alive. Barely. Behind her lay the ruins of the Skald's Hall, where she had faced the ghost of her mother and the vision of Odin's raven. They had told her what she didn't wish to hear, that the only way forward was death. The path to Valhalla was not walked by the living, and she was still too stubborn to die. Sigrun dragged herself up the slope, each breath a cloud of pain. Around her the forest whispered, branches cracking like bones, frost crunching beneath her boots. She reached a clearing where the ground dropped away into a vast valley of mist. From below she could hear them, The faint echoes of war cries, shields clashing, steel singing against steel. It was the sound of the fallen, the eternal battle fought by warriors beyond death. Valhalla. But between her and that distant glory, a figure waited. He was tall, cloaked in gray, his face hidden by a hood of feathers. Only one eye glimmered beneath the shadow. Odin. The Allfather did not speak at first. He merely looked at her, his expression both proud and sorrowful. The silence stretched until the cold began to eat through her armor. Then he said, "You've walked the path of blood and fire, Sigrun, daughter of Freydis. You've defied kings, spirits, and your own fate. Tell me, what have you learned of war?" She looked up at him, her breath trembling. That glory burns quickly, that even victory tastes of ash. Odin nodded once as though he had waited centuries for that answer. Then you see what few ever do. Valhalla is not a reward, child, it is the lesson. He raised his hand. The mist below shimmered like liquid light, parting to reveal a vision, hundreds of warriors locked in endless combat. When one fell, they rose again. When one triumphed, they found themselves at the mercy of another. Eternal struggle. Eternal repetition. Sigrun stared. Then there is no peace? Not even for the brave? Odin's voice was low. Peace is for the weak. But meaning is for those who dare to look beyond battle. He stepped closer, and for a moment she saw her reflection in his single eye. Bleeding, exhausted, but alive in a way no mortal had ever been. "You are not meant to feast in my hall," Odin said softly. "You are meant to light the way for others, to be remembered." Sigrun lowered her sword. The metal was heavy as regret. "So this is it," she whispered. "I don't enter Valhalla. I become its shadow." Odin's cloak shifted in the wind. Every hall needs its guardian, every saga its voice. And then, he vanished. The storm rose again. The world twisted into white and gold. Sigrun staggered to the edge of the cliff where the ground met the void. The air shimmered with light, soft at first, then radiant, a bridge of color stretching across the sky. The Bifrost, the rainbow bridge to the world beyond. She took one last look at her sword, then planted it upright in the snow. The blade hummed faintly, alive with runes and memories. "Carry my name," she whispered to the wind. "Tell them I was not afraid." She stepped forward and fell. For a heartbeat, she felt nothing. Then warmth, light. The pain left her body, replaced by the sound of distant horns. She opened her eyes to find herself standing in a golden field. The grass swayed beneath a blood-red sky. Far away, she saw halls rising higher than mountains, their roofs blazing with fire that did not burn. And walking toward her, her mother, Freydis. No armor, no scars, just pride. "You made it," Freydis said. Sigrun smiled through tears she hadn't known she could still shed. "Not to the feast, mother, but close enough." Freydis placed a hand on her daughter's heart. "Closer than most. You've become what I could not. More than a warrior, a keeper of the flame." Sigrun looked back at the world she'd left, the fjords, the battles, the songs that would be sung. "Will they remember me?" Her mother nodded. "Every girl who takes up a sword in your name will remember. Every man who doubts her will hear your story whispered by the wind." Sigrun closed her eyes. "Then I am content." The sound of drums filled the air, slow, thunderous, eternal. Sigrun walked with her mother into the light, her shadow stretching long behind her, across the fields of the dead, across the centuries that would follow. And as she vanished into the gates of legend, her voice seemed to echo from the storm she left behind. "We do not fight for glory. We fight to be remembered."